Good morning. How's it going? Good afternoon. Good evening. I know you guys are all over the world. Thanks for joining me. I'm Sarah Me Duffy, and this is Sew Live, where I sew something with you, whatever I'm working on. And right now I'm working on this Carolyn pajama top, or maybe it's Carolyn, I'm not sure. So we've made a kind of a couple of, stages of this already. We've made some pajama bottoms. I made another pajama top a few weeks ago. And now we're going to finish up this top, and we split it into two parts. And I'm kind of excited because we did that at the last second. I realized, okay, I don't want the stream to get too long, on Thursday. So I stopped after the collar, and now we have the sleeves and the hems and the side seams. And I kind of thought we could get nerdy about sleeves a little bit and setting them in. And I'll sew this right away. But then afterward, I'm going to just show you some pretty simple illustrations of sleeves, and when you affect the sleeve cap, what happens to the fit of the sleeve, because I feel like it's such a really tricky thing to understand. Like, why is it hard to lift my arm up in my sleeve? I'll show you exactly why that is, and why it's so hard to set them in sometimes, and why I'm such a huge fan of set-in sleeves, and why do I keep calling them set-in sleeves. There's only two styles, and one of them is set-in, and I'm a major fan of them. Hello, Christy. Hi, Ida. So, yay, nerd out on sleeves. I'm really excited. I was really excited to see other people were interested in that. So, I have made some diagrams really quickly today. I cut out some half-style, I'm so excited I can't even talk. I cut out some half-size patterns of them, and we're going to hack and slash a couple, and I will show you exactly what makes them fit, why they fit really well, why you should always pick a pattern with a set-in sleeve over one that doesn't have it if it's a similar bodice shape, because you'll be happier with the fit and you will wear it. So that's the big thing, right? We're not doing this to have these clothes sit in our closet. We really want to wear them, and when we're comfortable, it makes all the difference in the world. So I'm already getting hot. I'm so excited. Okay, so I moved my camera a little bit so it's right in front of me. Hi, Carol. So I'm hoping this works. Just tell me if the lighting and everything is good. And I've got my little top here. I have been sewing this with French seams, and I decided the last second, right before I went live, to overlock just the armhole on the sleeve cap on this, so that when I sew it in, you can see exactly what's happening. Because if I did a French seam, it wouldn't really show as well how to ease in all that extra. So let's just get right to it. And then I'll still do French seams on the side seams and a regular old hem. So, all right, so let me know what you guys are working on too. I want to know, are you guys chilling at home? Are you sewing? Are you just having coffee? It's 11 a.m. here, so, I would still be having coffee if I were at home. So let's see, and where are my sleeves? They're right under here. Okay, so first of all, I laid these sleeves, both of them right side up, and so I lined them up at the bicep right here. This is the bicep, or also known as the underarm. This is the sleeve cap. This is your underarm seam right here. It seems really counter to think of it that way, but it's the underarm seam. I keep looking for the camera up a little higher. I'm trying to get this camera out of the way and not strain so much to look up, you know what I mean? So, but I wanted you to notice, so if I line these points up, I may have stretched it out a little bit when I serged it. It's not perfect, but I just wanted you to see, this is the back, this is the front, and that's the difference. So already you can see that a sleeve is not symmetrical. If it is, it's either probably a knit pattern or a budget pattern, or they didn't know how to draft a sleeve. And I'm really sorry if I insulted a lot of indie pattern designers out there. I don't mean to. I totally understand on one level why they do that, but it's not okay. So, oh, awesome, Christy. Ooh, you're going to Christmas parties? Oh, how fun. Did you make something fancy for it? So, and you cut out a pattern. What are you making? I want to know. So, all right. So, the reason this is because if you were to look at how someone stands, have a friend just stand there for you with their arm, Your arm naturally comes to the front. It kind of tilts to the front. The back of your arm is a little bit bigger, hence why you have a little bit here. And because your arm naturally goes to the front and the front of your arm is a little bit smaller, they carve out this little extra. So actually, this is the sleeve, and then they shave off some of the front to get rid of this little like dart right here, which you often actually see in knitwear because knitwear designers don't sometimes take that into account. Some of them do. So what did you say, Carol? Oh, a robe, nice. Oh, a hood's cozy, but you're right. Mine has a hood and I never wear it. Oh, the jilly top with a tie front. Oh, cute. I like it. I'm gonna check that out. Easy for beginners. Hey, who cares if it's for beginner or not? If it's easy, that's what we want, right? We want to finish it and get it going. so anyway, all right. So I just thought I'd show you that the front of the sleeve is typically carved away a little bit, just like in this pattern. And if you were to measure this on the seam line and then measure the armhole on the seam line, you know, where the seam line is, you would notice that the sleeve is much bigger. Sometimes only 3/4 of an inch bigger, sometimes up to 1.5 inches. So, and you want that excess. Like the more, the better. It may be a little trickier to sew, but once you figure out how to sew these every time, no problem, you're gonna want that excess because it just makes your garment so much more comfortable and flattering. And I swear, like when your garment fits you and through your shoulders and on your armhole, your sleeve, this upper arm area, it's just like pants. When that area fits right there at the crotch, the thigh, the butt, and the hips, we want to wear those, right? Those are the things we want to wear, and it's the same here. It's the same style pattern. It's called a bifurcated pattern. So you have one cylinder going to another cylinder, and it's the same with pants. You have your leg, one cylinder going to your trunk. So that is why those areas are so tricky to fit. And we can talk about grain lines too. Like when you think about it, like if this was cut in a print, like a stripe, you'd really be able to see that the grain line changes pretty significantly along both of these. So the grain line is almost straight up and down on the armhole at the top, and then it's crosswise at the bottom. And it's the same with the sleeve. And so that also presents some issues, good and bad, like fit, and easing, and the ability to stretch it when you shouldn't, you know, stuff like that. So, all right, so let's set this in. I'm gonna do this the traditional and what I've been taught is the proper way, where you are going to sew your side seam of your garment, you're going to sew your underarm of your sleeve, and then you're gonna set the sleeve in around the armhole. So the cheater way to do it, and I am not looking down on anyone who does that, I do this from time to time as well, is to sew the sleeve armhole, the cap to the armhole first, and then you do this seam and your side seam all in one fell swoop. So you can do that. It gets kind of nerdy doing it like the way I like to do it, and that's because like when you think of that armhole, it's a circle, right? So why would you interrupt that circle with a broken line at the bottom, right? That is exactly what you're doing when you do a continuous armhole like this. Rather, you would like that round armhole. It does affect the fit. It's gentle, I know. No, it is not. The longer slope of the curve is usually the back. So the one that's carved away is always the front. And the one that is up higher is the back. And I'm going to pretty safely assume that if I were to measure the back and measure the front, the back is going to be it's going to be a little bit longer. And I'm going to tell you something else about that. I don't have the sleeve pattern with me, but there's always a notch at the top, and that notch denotes the front shoulder always. It is not the center of the sleeve, it is the front, it is the shoulder line, and the shoulder naturally sits to the front. So I will see patterns, and I see sewn things on a rack all the time where the shoulder line is at the back. I see it in knitwear design as well. Sorry, knitwear designers. I don't know why people do that. I've seen professional pattern makers do this. There might be some sort of school of thought on where that shoulder line is. Personally, and how I was trained, it always sits sort of to the front, like right about here. I'm actually probably, I'm like looking at myself in the camera. So your front shoulder, I feel like it looks the most attractive and the most natural if your shoulder seam sits just slightly towards the front or on the front of your body, rather than on the back or on the top. So, and in kids' clothing, because kids are little, you know, little potatoes, and they don't have all of the body definition and shapes that they're going to have when they become an adult. You know, they don't have, you know, natural waists going in. They're more shaped round like a little potato. They don't really have a neck for a really long time as well. When you do their shoulder line, you take the front pattern or the back, depending on which one you already have, and then for the front, you just make it like whatever the company school of thought is, parallel line less for the front to the back. So in other words, you lay the front pattern on top of the back pattern and make the front 3/4 of an inch lower. So what we would do probably is start with the back pattern piece and then trace off the back pattern piece, raise up the, or lower the neckline and then lower the shoulder line. And that was it. That was about all we did. So you could lay the 0 point would have been the bottom. I'm really explaining this terribly. Let me just give you pattern pieces. So these have darts. Kids' clothes never have darts. It would be a very style-driven reason to have darts on children's clothing. So you would lay the front on the back, or trace the back, sorry, trace the back out, and then lower the shoulder and lower the neckline for the front. This is actually the back right here. So, and let's see how this one, this is like from my college book. So this shoulder line is the same. And that's not how I was trained, not even in college, and this is my college book, but I have several books. This is from one of the books I didn't follow as closely. I followed a flat pattern making, and this one was a flat pattern making book, but she also went into, her designs were pretty dated, but that doesn't change the pattern drafting basics at all, because style comes and goes. Humans pretty much haven't changed a whole lot. Except that, you know, like Americans are getting heavier, or, you know, teenagers are getting taller. There's things like that that are gently changing over time. So, and I'm totally getting off topic. I get totally nerdy about this. I think about sizing and fit and style lines constantly, and I'm throwing way too much at you right now. So I'm really sorry about that. But I love talking about it. I would love to know other pattern drafters so I can nerd out on it. I've tried talking knitwear designers, and they just kind of are like, whatever, you don't know what you're doing, because I'm a sewer. That's how I feel. I'm sure that's not what they're thinking, but my self-esteem is like, oh, well, I thought we could nerd out on this together, but I guess not. I've tried to with a few of them, and I'm like, okay, whatever. You know, what? That's how it goes, right? Okay, so I'm going to do my side seam, and I'm going to do a French seam first. And I'm going to do it wrong sides together. I feel everything feels so rearranged just because my camera's right there, like eye level now. And I'm all excited about this. So I gotta remind myself that, oh, I have my automatic back tack on. Let me turn that off. I gotta remind myself that this is a 5/8 inch seam allowance. I'm kind of stubborn about that. And my stitch length is super small right now. I've been working on a project, a Christmas gift. Like, wish me luck on. Oh, good. I'm glad, Carol. Yeah, I feel like I would really love to do a lot more of the pattern drafting stuff with you. I've been looking. I have 2 of these right here. Like, what the heck? I was looking everywhere for a second pair to leave over on the table. Apparently, I stole them. I'm going to get rid of all of this thread vomit. Not actually thread, but it is from the fabric. You know, like once you've cut something out, it kind of has a mind of its own. The fabric starts relaxing. The more it gets handled, it starts getting a little threadier, you know, stuff like that. I'm gonna warm up my iron. I'm gonna make myself wear new jammies tonight. I was really glad. Like I wear my jammies, if a few days in a row, and this morning I was like, put these in the laundry because you have 2 new sets of pajamas, and you are wearing some of them tonight. I would. Did anyone? Okay, Nancy's not here. I don't think. Is Nancy here? Nancy, did you see, or anyone who has the needle sharp box? Did you see the next one after jeans is robes? That's kind of fitting for me because remember I tried to do that robe and then I had accidentally requested the wrong size. I did it through Sprout. They were kind enough to say, no, we can fix that. We'll print the right size. And then it still got printed the wrong size. So it ended up being like size for my daughter. And I had to give it to her. So I was pretty excited that the needle sharp is a robe because I could still use a backup robe. She steals my other robe too. I was just guilting her this morning. Like, hey, you have 4 robes. I have none. Give me my robe back. Okay. Let's iron this. Okay, so when we do a French seam, yes, Christy. Oh, you slept on your pillowcase. It's awesome. So the French seam, you want to press the seam open. It seems kind of counter to what you're going to do, and then I'm going to press it along the side seam. I am so fumble-fingered today. Forgive me. I just need to calm down. Okay. So then I'm going to press this along the seam line, and then I'll stitch it just like that. Okay, one more seam. Oh, you guys, you know what I forgot to tell you? This is crazy. You know how I joined Seamwork? I've been thinking about it for over a year, and I finally was like, you know what, this will be really great. I'll join Seamwork because they're trying to build a community. I'm trying to build a community, and you know, I just want to interact with more people that want to sew. And it would be nice to have some more patterns for content, right? Like maybe more things that other people are making so they're present, you know. And I've been trying to like get involved in the community the best I can. I'm kind of busy. And I, you know, tried talking to forums, and I saw they had an outerwear challenge, so I put my tamarack in there. So I just finished it. And then it got nominated for Best Details, and they had like 9 nominees in 3 categories, and I won. And they gave me a $50 gift certificate to a fabric store of my choice, and so I picked Hearts Fabric in Santa Cruz because they're in California, and anything I get from there, they're just really great to work with, and they're fast. So that's great. So that'll almost pay for a whole project for the stream. So that's pretty exciting. All right. So here's my side seam. I still got threads poking through. Like, what the heck? I'll probably see. I'm going to do that. I scrunch it up like that sometimes. It's not even thread. It's like the weaving. Thanks, Christy. I know. I was pretty flattered and excited, and it's interesting. I think like this is my own personal little thing, is like, I notice over the years, like, sometimes the better you get at something, the less recognition you get for it. But I still have that sense of accomplishment anytime I finish something, anytime I sew something, anytime I like it and I wear it and it fits well, just like everybody else, you know, because it's like, I don't get to practice sewing these over and over again. I just have a lot of experience, and I know what doesn't work more often than anything else. Thanks, you guys. So it did feel good. Like, I feel like that whole, well, it's easy for you attitude comes through more often than, oh, nice job, you know. So that was pretty fun. It was cool. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to do my underarm seam here. Doesn't matter sometimes the quality of the sewing. People want to know, you know, if they're feeling proud and they finish something and they're excited about it, that's all that matters. It's their project. It's none of my business, right? So I'm always trying to congratulate people when they finish things. And I see like very, very popular people out there sewing things that aren't sewn well, but it doesn't matter. Like, they're super excited and they did it, right? They finished it. They're wearing it. Sorry, my finger looks so gross. I'm so sorry. I'm working on my ring. This is the worst scissors to do this with. I'm doing quick and dirty here. I'm trying to get to the armhole. Yeah, so maybe I will, I'm not sure what the denim selection is for hearts, but maybe I could get my Itch to Stitch Mountain View pull-on pants. Or better yet, maybe I should use it towards fabric on a seamwork pattern. That'd be a nice way to say thanks, you know? I have this really incredible story to tell you, and I can't tell you yet because it's a big secret. It's nothing about, like, I don't have any big reveals or anything like that, but I do have a really amazing success miracle story to share with you guys next week, and I can't wait to share it with you because it's probably going to make you cry. It's pretty cool. I can't wait. Remind me if I forget, okay? I'll definitely have it to share by Thursday. Okay, I'm going to do this one faster. I'm not going to iron this one. It's my underarm seam. Yes, it would look nicer, but I really want to get to the sleeve cap. I want to talk patterns. This fabric is so tacky. Like, you know, some fabrics you can kind of do this thing where you slide it between your fingers to get it right on the edge. This doesn't want to do that. Oh, I always start French seams. You need to start them wrong sides together and then press the seam open and then press the seam closed, like along the seam edge here, and then sew it right sides together. Because remember, you want your last seam and French seams to be sewn right sides together so that you get the clean finish on the right side. You've seen me do them wrong a billion times live, so I can see why you would think the other way. Because I often forget that I'm doing French seams because I have never done so many French seams in my life until I started sewing with you guys. And in other news, my little puppy and my dog are getting along so well. Brooke, it's adorable. They just wrestle and chew on each other and play all day long now. It's the cutest little thing. And he is so happy she likes him now. And she's so gentle. It's so cute, you guys. And he's starting to like my husband more than all of us, of course. So, like, he looks at me and he's like, you're going to put me down for a nap, you know? Like, I'm like the mom, you know? But I just see him usually at bedtime lately. Because he's, like, interested in everybody else. Okay, so let's see. I'm just going to inspect that. Make sure everything looks good. Looks good to me. I will say, like, putting on the decorative, like, cuff and trim, when this is open, I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't fault anyone for doing that, because this is a pretty small circumference to do the cuff and the decorative piping. So you could do that with the seam open. I almost cut into my sleeve. Did you see that? You could do that with this seam open first, and then do your underarm. My older dog she was a rescue as well, and so we've had conflicting reports. I think she's between 5 and 7. So she still acts like a puppy, you know, she's a very playful dog, but we also jokingly call her a cat because she can sleep as much as a cat. So the puppy's keeping her awake a lot more now, which is good. And he sleeps hard too. Okay, so I feel like I remember when I first started sewing sleeves, the tricky part was like, okay, I got a sleeve, I got my shirt, which one goes to which armhole, right? I just focus on one thing. Like, so that's my front. It's my front notch. So when I serged this, I kind of pulled it apart when I got to this point in the serging so I could still see my notch. And I was just really careful because you can see that it did stretch out that edge. You see that little rippling there? So you gotta be careful with stuff like that. So this sleeve, so you could always do it like this. Just be very literal. Make it work for you, like how it makes it understand, right? How you understand it. So if this is the front, and it's going to sew to that edge like that, that sleeve goes to that side, okay? So that is the way, it's a foolproof way, right? And then you can kind of put it right sides together and get it. All right, so right now, first though, we're gonna put in the stay stitch. And it's not necessarily a stay stitch in that it is a mechanism to ease in the excess of the sleeve cap into the armhole, okay? Because we don't wanna stretch out the armhole to fit the sleeve cap. There's ramifications to that, don't ever do that. You really wanna ease all of this in to that. So I'm going to put my line of stitching, and I'm not even going to make it longer or shorter. I'm just going to use my exact same stitching, and I'll tell you why. If you make the stitch length long, like in a traditional basting stitch for gathering, you run the risk of getting tucks in your sleeve because remember, like the spacing of the needle holes, the bigger it is, the more of a gap you have, and then the fabric is less fixed to itself. Right? So you don't want it too tight because you need to be able to pull on one of those threads like you are gathering it up, but just ever so slightly. So I'm just going to use my regular old stitch. And if yours isn't too tight or too short, you can probably do the exact same thing. And I'm just going to run a stitch just inside the seam allowance. So the seam allowance is 5/8. I'm doing this at 1/2. You could do it even closer to the 5/8 line. And I'm just going to run it around between the notches of the front sleeve and the back sleeve. Which one, Christy? So just run it between these notches. Sometimes a pattern will give you like dots on the sleeve, and that's what they're wanting you to ease in. I just always go between the notches. It doesn't matter. You don't really need to ease towards the curve of the cap. You need to do it on the, like, not the curve of the armhole of the cap, but you want to ease the top of the cap. That's the most important. Don't backstitch. I'm going to do my other one right now as well. Oh, wait a minute. I feel like I have two left and right sleeves here. Making sure. Okay. It's okay. It looked different all of a sudden. All right, just make sure you don't stretch this out anymore. Where's my, there it is, okay. Okay, so this first sleeve. So I'm gonna go to that stitching, and Oh, good. Yeah, just keep it normal. I don't think you really need to do anything different. You can if you want. My stitch length's pretty short right now. It'll be a little hard to draw up, but I don't want to draw up very much. You'll be surprised like how much you can draw up just by tightening it. So I think in sewing, on the whole, become the person you want to be in your gathering stitches by always choosing the exact same thread to pull. So I always pull the top. I always pull the top thread, so I don't wonder what side did I pull when you get down to sewing it in. So just become the person, decide now who you are. Are you a top thread puller? Or are you a bobbin thread puller? It doesn't matter which. Most patterns will tell you pull the bobbin threads. I've never noticed any difference with either one. I always naturally pull the top because it's right there facing me. And so I know I pulled the top thread. So just decide that once and for all, forever and ever. Amen. You're done. And now you never have to wonder which one you pulled. Okay? All right. So I'm just pulling it along here. You want to pull a little bit on each side. So go pull from your back side, pull from your front side. And I kind of put the whole thing in my hand like this and kind of slide it around, slide it down. So now you see all those gathers. Now I'm going to smooth those out. I'm going to pinch it really hard here so that it can't go back that way. I'm just going to evenly distribute this. I don't want any tucks. And I already did this on the front. So you see that? See all the gathers in there? But see, I still have a smooth line where the seam line is. Okay? And do you see? I'm already getting that cap shape. Okay, so the reason you have all this excess here is you need it to go across the gushy part of your bicep there. If you got rid of all that, it would shave off some of this fabric right here, making it tighter across your cap, and then you can't lift your arms up. I know you know that sensation. I know a lot of sewers who put their sleeve in and cut the extra off of the sleeve at the armhole because they don't know what to do with it or they're frustrated. And I totally understand why, because some patterns, you know, they explain it, but they don't explain like why you need it. And I think a lot of us are really driven with needing to know why I need that to have the justification of using it. You know what I mean? Okay, so here's my sleeve. Gonna go like that, and this is sometimes what I do to keep it straight in my head, which is the left and the right. I just take my sleeve like that over that and pull it from the inside. Now I know I'm right sides together and I got my sleeve going the right direction, like front to back, back to back. Okay. I still do really basic things like that to keep it straight in my head. You know why? Because I'm thinking about other things in life. I'm thinking about, you know, the puppy and my sewing machine needing to be oiled and where are my scissors and, oh, I forgot to do that thing. So I do certain little things. So why make it complicated? I'm not a genius. I just want it to be easy, logical, and I want to enjoy it. Okay, so I'm not even going to pin this because it's all going to work out. So now I really want you to put your sleeve in there and just kind of do this, kind of shake it in there like this, okay? See all that extra I got rid of? Now look for that notch at the top. There it is. Is that it? Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And you want to line that up to the seam, the shoulder seam. I'm going to pin that because that is non-negotiable. You really need that notch to match up at the shoulder because it tilts the sleeve forward. Because remember, your arms do this naturally. So it'll just be more comfortable. So I pull my little threads up just so that they don't get pushed to the outside of the garment. I'm going to push my underarm and my side seam to the back of the garment. Which one is that? So that is this, okay? So this is the back. I'm going to line those up. I'm going to push those to the back. I'm going to pin that. And you know, if it's too bulky with the French seams, I might stagger the sleeve towards the front and the side seam of the bodice towards the back because that's the one that's visual. And I'll tell you also why I would do that. So I'll just do that so you can kind of see. It's nice because then the seam will kind of nest together like that when you have going one way and the other. I always pin on the sleeve side. You're gonna sew this from the sleeve side. I'm so fiddly right now. Okay, sorry guys. Okay, here. Let's get rid of that thread. So I'm lining up the seam, putting my sleeve seam towards the front of the garment and the bodice side seam towards the back, only because it's thick. You don't have to do that. You can put them both towards the back if you like. If you press your seams open, then just line up the seams to seam and keep your seams open. That's even less bulky, so that's really nice. And we would have that if we weren't doing the French seam. Okay, so here's my cap. I'm gonna sew from the sleeve side. I always start at the bottom, just kind of get my sewing legs under me when I get to that tricky bit. And then I just line up the raw edges. I'm gonna make sure all of this is kind of relaxed on the table and not fighting me as I go, because it wants to right now. And because this fabric looks the same front and back and all the pieces, I'm like, okay, what's what? So I just wanted to behave right now. I'm gonna get rid of this pin right now. Let's get my, and now, can you see this okay? See, here's my sleeve right here. Just gonna line that up down there. And I feel like I could actually pull this a little bit more. So let's pull a little bit more. So little. I want it more at the top. Okay. All right. There's my thread. I kind of like keeping track of that tail because I'm actually going to pull out that thread at the very end and get rid of it. Then it'll be even more relaxed. Okay, I'm just making sure that underneath here, I'm going like this. I'm smoothing the bodice so that I don't get any wrinkles or I don't accidentally sew the bodice under the seam. All right, we have no tucks in the lower part of the armhole. So you can just sew that right off the bat and then get to your basting area. You're gonna sew just to the left of that first stay stitch basting seam. It's such a wide seam allowance. I really wish it wasn't so big. It makes it harder to deal with. I'm going to convert you all to 1/4 inch neckline collar people and 1/2 inch seam allowances. All right, so you see that? And keep it, it's still smooth. The line is still smooth. This is why putting this first stitch as close to the seam line as possible sets you up for the best success, because then you just need to go just to the left of it and you don't really have to fiddle with it at all. I'm trying to sew slowly so you can see all the little details. Keep it flat. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this pin because I don't want to tuck right there. I can feel my shoulder seam, that's okay. Just making sure my notch still lines up. Keeping my raw edges together. It's a lot to keep track of, I know. All right, and so let's just kind of make sure that this is all nice and smooth to here. To the starting point, to the notch that we match, okay? I will even pin it because it's non-negotiable. All right. Now you might see your presser foot push the tucks and it looks like you're getting tucks, but you're not. Your needle is not creating a tuck. And if your needle does, you might even be able to ease it out without even unpicking the stitch. Making sure that those raw edges stay together, or the serged edges stay together. And when you get to this, make sure you come at it straight, okay? You really want a nice, smooth curve right here, okay? All right, so let's look at it. See that? No tucks. I'm gonna pull out my thread now. You don't have to do that. I like to do it. Get rid of it. You know me, I don't like to immortalize threads. Let's see how it looks. See that? I haven't even ironed it yet. So that looks like, those potentially look like tucks, but let's look at them. They aren't. They're just where it gathered up. And when you push your seam allowance towards the sleeve, it'll fill up that little curve that you've created. So next time you see a man's suit coat or even a woman's suit coat, women's suit coats don't have it quite as exaggerated because they put bigger shoulder pads usually in men's suits. You'll notice this little, you see this little like curve right here. Can you see that? This little curve right here. That's what we're creating because we now have a little bit of extra right here to go over the gushy part of our upper arm, you know. And then when you iron that, you can really get rid of all those wrinkles and you'll start seeing that. You'll start seeing those little details like that can't, like when it hangs flat like this and kind of like scooped away from the armhole, it's either got to be a really loose sleeve or it's just not going to fit really well. So, okay, so let's do our other one. Now I know which way this goes because I only have one left. Makes it a little easier. And just like someone said the other day, you can just chalk it front and back or left and right sleeve, stuff like that. And when you mark things left and right, always mark them as if you're wearing it. Don't do it any other way, even if it makes sense the other way at first. Get on board with as you're wearing it, considering left and right, because all patterns speak that way. And if they don't, then you're in a world of hurt anyway. So I've never seen a pattern not speak in those terms. Always look at it as if you are wearing it, it's on your body, not as if you're looking at it. All right, so let's see. Let's uncurl everything. Okay, so this is my back this time. So I'm gonna put my sleeve towards the front and my bodice towards the back, just like that. Oh, I need to still draw up my sleeve. We can pin it first. Okay. All right, so I am going to pull my threads. Where is it? There it is. I spent a whole quarter, it was my school's on quarters, on sleeves, just sleeves. That's it. Just sleeves. It was a 3-hour or 6-hour long class. I can't remember which one that was. And you do that several times. So 3 hours or 6 hours, I can't remember how long that class was, a day, or like once or twice a week for 9 weeks. And it wasn't until I left college that I learned how to sew it in perfectly every time. And I don't even remember where I learned it or how. It was probably just a combination of seeing people do it in real life or reading the correct instructions that one time. Might have been like, I have this guide to fashion sewing book that in some ways is kind of basic, but it just breaks things down really nicely, and I used to look at it a lot. I haven't looked at it in a really long time, and I keep meaning to look at it for you guys to see if there's other things in there that might be really useful, because I forget about certain things that other people might be sewing. So I'll check that out. Okay, so we know our notches are non-negotiable. So let's just pin those so we know. All right, I'll pin this time more. I'm always keeping my thread tail out so that I can grab it later. Don't have to do that. I just like to get rid of the thread. And now let's look. That looks pretty good. We're going to move some more of it up towards the cap though. We don't want that to get too flat up there, right? We like that little like rounded curve. Okay. Now if I were to do this with French seams, which I've done several times on the stream before, I would do the same thing I always do, and then it would be on my second pass that I would really make sure that all the this part's happening. It's just harder to see in a French seam me doing that, so that's why I did it the serge right before I saw you guys. Okay, there's all my gathers. Look at all that. All that is going in there flat. I could ease more in if there was. I wish I could remember who taught me that little trick, just like easing it in like that so simply, you know? Lining up that notch at the top where the shoulder seam is. Getting my garment smooth underneath, keeping my raw edges together. They're not raw, they're serged, but you know what I mean, the cut edges. Keeping almost all the gathers towards the top. So you're not distributing the excess around the entire perimeter of the sleeve. You're only distributing it on the top part of the cap. That's where you want it, where the gushy part of your bicep will be. A good exercise is to like make a muslin of a sleeve and then draw, like wear it and then draw on it where certain parts of your body are and like put a dot like, oh, this right here was right here, and then look at the pattern piece and go, that's where that is, you know, that kind of relation to where things are on you versus the pattern really start helping you shape how you can fit it better. You know what I mean? Like you just need to get that kind of understanding. And pants especially. Pants are really confusing. We don't look at that area as much as we look at our upper body, you know? Okay, so I'm going to just pull out my basting thread. Like that. Looks like I sewed over a tiny bit on the side. There we go. It's another reason to get rid of it because sometimes that little first pass sneaks on the side of the seam and then it shows on the outside. Okay, right there. You see that? That's not very straight right there because I probably paused. So let's get rid of that little blunder there. Can you see that difference right there? It dipped right there. I don't need to get rid of it because it's on the seam allowance side. That kind of stuff shows up, makes it your sewing look wobbly on the outside. All right, there you go. That one's even nicer. Look at that. All right, what do you guys think? You got this, right? No problem. I did no magic tricks. I didn't do anything hinky without you seeing it. I like showed you exactly what I do. So then there's my sleeve. And then we just have this trim to put on the cuff. I just want to go to our sleeve pattern tutorial and not even finish this now. All right, so let's see. One cuff, one cuff. I'm going to sew the cuff in a circle since I have a circle down at the bottom. Probably should have put this on in the flat, you know, like before we put the underarm seam of the sleeve together. It would have been easier. The drawbacks to that is that you'd have a raw edge at the, it would look like this at the bottom of your cuff. You would see this edge right here. I'm not explaining that very well, but trust me. Okay, so I think I'm going to push my seam one direction, mainly because keeping it open on that fold sometimes gets a little tricky. Yes, they will, Christy. Hi, Christina. Nice to see you. Yeah, they will. I mean, I feel like once I got that, I just sewed everything with set-in sleeves, and it's why, like, they just fit better. They just fit better. And so there's only two styles of sleeves. There's set-in and then what they call kimono. And the reason they call it kimono is because it's referencing the Chinese style kimono where they build the sleeve onto the bodice, and it's an all-in-one. So that's the difference. It's a set-in or all-in-one, and all-in-ones are called kimono. And I have big issues with kimono sleeves. They are easier to sew, but they don't fit well, and the shirt can choke you. It'll slip to the back because you need this distinction of your armhole and your shoulder line to create the slope that you need so that the garment sits and stays where you want it to, so it's not like slipping to the back. And without an armhole, it does that. So they may be easier to sew. They also, like for me, they don't fit me very well across my back, like, and it looks bunched up under the armhole. Okay, let's move you out of the way. Eek! That's what I was trying to prevent. Let's sew a little bit of this together so I'm ready. I could sew this in a circle, I know. Maybe I should. Should I? I just want to finish. Let's get enough for 2 sleeves. All right. That's got to be, well, that's actually may not be enough. Let's see. Oh, so close, so close. Raglan sleeves are also, I feel like, it's funny that you brought that up, Ida, because that's the only other sleeve style that I will consider wearing and I like. They have their issues. What's nice about them in, like, say, like sportswear is it gets the seams sometimes out of high abrasion areas, like for shoulder, like for backpacks and things like that. And in rare cases, if they're engineered a particular way, they can also increase the range of motion. But you're talking pretty specific patterns, and if you saw them, you wouldn't recognize them probably. I've had to draft those and really loved doing it, in fact. I do like raglans. I like jerseys and things like that. They are in the kind of in the kimono style. They are in the bodice and sleeve all-in-one type thing. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you do. Yeah, I used to as well. Now I really like sleeves where you do the whole garment, the whole knitted sweater top down. I do like top down. I like bottom up, actually. I do both. But then I like to pick up stitches around the armhole and knit the sleeve down from there. Once I learn how to do that, that's what I like. I feel like it fits the best for me, the way my body is. So, all right, so let's, this is not, I gotta do this in the round. What am I thinking? It's not binding. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I almost got some raglan trials out, and I was like, let's just stick to set-ins today. So let's see. I'm going to line that up with the seam allowance there and figure out how long I need this to be. Then cut 2. It's right at a seam, of course. That's awesome. Yeah, well, that makes sense. That's awesome, Christina. I don't think I've knit any of her patterns. I know there's a lot of really popular knitwear designers out there, and popular doesn't always mean that it's the best pattern, the easiest to follow, the best fitting, or sized right? So it is really hard. It's just like in garment sewing. It's the exact same thing. You've really got to like figure out, like, look at all the different body types it's on. Does that work for my body type? And in knitting, you have the added complication that you're creating the fabric as you go, you know. And for any of the non-knitters out there, it is a particular struggle. You hear them talk a lot about gauge, and gauge is really, really important in knitting. I'm definitely in the always knit a gauge swatch camp. Let's see, how clunky can I sew this together for you guys? This is what happens. I get excited about something and then I just want to like, hey Kirby, how's it going? We're nerding out on sleeves today. Oh, I forgot to open my advent calendar. You reminded me, dang it. Oh, there's a seam here, and I didn't really pull out enough. See the seam right there? Where the binding was pieced together. Let me make this really hard on myself here. See if I can get it to smooth out a little bit. Of course it doesn't want to. It wants to poke out right there because there's a seam and all this extra seam allowance. Yes, always into gauge swatch. Exactly. Here, we'll get rid of this. Yeah, I really like knitting. Like, I feel like knitting was really attractive to me as a pattern drafter because I found it really interesting that you're sculpting your garment as you put it together, you know? You're making the fabric and the garment. And boy, anything can happen, you know? Okay, now I have my little cuffs. Let's hope they fit. Since I only measured once and not 12 times, you know, I should probably measured more. They're biased. I'll get them to fit. I want them to be a little bigger, right? Get rid of all these threads here. I could, one step I can do to make this go faster though is I will serge these afterwards so that we can get to the hem and then get to the little sleeve, the nerd out sleeve portion of the stream today. Okay, so what you can do, actually maybe I will put this on here first. Do I want to put it on here first or this first? I think I did it on the cuff for the pants, right? I think I'm going to put it on the sleeve first this time. I'm going to line up my underarm seam. Okay, and so we know that we pushed our sleeve seams towards the front. See, it's towards the front. This one's towards the back. That one's towards the front. So we'll continue that down here at the cuff so it doesn't get twisted. If you're pressing your seams open, you don't have to worry about this. And you know, if you twist the seam, don't cry. It happens. It's more frustrating when you are doing it in a short section like a side seam and you are ironing that regularly to wear it. You don't iron the underarm very often, so it's not going to be obvious and it's not going to be frustrating. And it's also not going to show as much as it could on a side seam if it's twisted, because you'll see that little lump where you tried to iron it and it went one way or the other. That fit really well. Okay, so let's see, push to the front. Here we go. I always sew from the inside of a circle like this, a small circle. Makes it a little easier. This is my funky one. Okay, I'm still pressing it forward. Let's get rid of this thread here. So has anyone sewn like set in sleeves and they're like, why is all this extra here? And they just cut it off, or they have tucks in their sleeve, or they just didn't finish it, or anything like that. Like, I'm kind of curious, what are some of the things you thought of, and what are some of the issues, and how did you solve it if you did? You know, think we'd all like to know that. They're common in one way because it's like the de facto way to make a pattern. You know, it is the basic block that you start from, even to make a kimono. You would use a set-in sleeve block or sloper to make a kimono. It's not the other way around. You need the definition to start with. And okay, so now I'm just going to put my cuff in here. I'm going to sew this at a 1/2 inch seam, and then I'm going to go back and serge this edge off stream later on. I'm not going to do this as a French seam. What did we do? We did do, not a French seam, I mean clean finish. Oh, I did it on the cuff of the floral pants. So if you really want to see how I clean finish a cuff rather than doing it this way, look at that Carolyn Pajama's pant pattern. Yeah, oh, for the back, front, yeah, I know. I've done that too. It's really confusing. Yeah, I know. It's hard to think inside out and front and back and backwards and all that. I'm going to have to sew this twice because I can already tell I'm like not a big enough seam allowance here. Ooh, and I'm having trouble getting all the sleeve in here. All this cuff in here, I mean. Because now I've like fixed the sleeve. Let's untwist this here. Yeah, that 5/8 inch seam allowance though. Eek! And I definitely want it because I don't want my my little piping to be too wide. See, look how wide that is. So I need that. But I can feel it, like it's right here. And I keep thinking it's gonna get too narrow. Oh, awesome, Christy. I hope that worked. I hope my little method works for you. Yeah, when I see prototypes or like sewn samples for like pattern releases and I see stuff like that, I'm just like, I don't want to sew that pattern. You know, I wish sometimes that they would work out those kinks before they release it to the world. I'm going to have to start a snarky pattern review site. I can't do that though. Like I could to my friends. But I don't want to be snarky. I want everyone to like be like, oh yeah, you're right. Let's just fix this. You know what I mean? Let's move on. You know, like I don't really dwell on that. I make mistakes all the time. I am happy to be like, yep, you're right. I made a mistake. I say it to my customers flat out, you know. It's just like the fastest way to move on and heal and get to the good stuff, right? All right. Just going around and around and around in a circle to get the seam allowance right because I'm so nervous about that 5/8. It's so wide. Let's see how it looks. It looks pretty good. It's a little bit wavy. But you know, that continuous right there through the seam line there is so nice rather than it having been like sewn flat because it just wouldn't have this nice finish here, and it's nice to have the continuous trim going around. It is just kind of those types of details. And one of these days maybe I can sew like, well, look at how narrow I got there. Okay, I might go back and fix some of this. And I probably will go back and top stitch the cuff. Yeah, I think I'll go back and top stitch the cuff unless I probably will push the seam allowances up actually like this. Like that. Press it up and then, yeah, like that. And then I'll top stitch it down. I'm going to decide if I like this before I immortalize it, right? So let's look at our hem here. I'm going to just look at the whole thing. It's a shirt style hem, so it's got the curve. And I just wanted to see, is it all lining up still? Because remember, I shortened mine. And I know I didn't get my facings quite right. So like this one's a little shorter. But what's more important is that these right here, the center fronts, line up. And then we'll base our hem length on that. And it's a pajama top, so I'm going to commit to a hem length without trying it on. I kind of know the measurements that I like in some things. Yeah, I know, right, Ida? Yeah. I think coming up with good ways that make sense to you and then just being consistent about it is so important. I will say, like, and this isn't tooting my own horn, it's like that kind of thing I get really easily. And so I really struggle to like come up with ways that make sense to everybody, because I noticed right early on from when I was young that I understand things inside out, like spatially, pretty easily. And I want it to be understandable to everybody. And so I feel like some of the things, though, that do confuse me are other little things that don't confuse anybody else. So I think finding the thing that works, that makes the most sense to you. And I don't think you're alone. I think almost everybody would say the same thing as you, Ida. Is there any rule about how much larger the sleeve should be? Yeah. It's not a percentage usually. I could read up on that because I don't think it was ever put in as a rule or a percentage. But like I say, you don't want less than 3/4 of an inch, which won't make much of a difference and honestly doesn't make the greatest fitting sleeve. But it could be up to 1.5 inches easily. I think like 1.25 inches is usually ideal. And that's not a percentage, obviously. That was like a basic block on the basic size, which is size 8 or size 10. And this is a size 8 or size 10 from about 30 years ago. So a size 8 and a size 10 has changed a little bit since then because of what people call vanity sizing and stuff like that. So in general, you are going to look at the style of the garment and decide like how close fitting do I want this and how full do I want it. But, you know, it doesn't matter. Like if you wanted a fuller sleeve and a fuller garment, the armhole is going to get bigger too. So it generally is about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches. I didn't measure this one, but I imagine it's about that. And the little like quarter style pattern I noticed is about 1/4 inch. And so if that's 1/4, that would make that almost 2 inches once it got all the way to the big size, right? Because you would multiply it by 4. But there's not really a rule. You just hope that they add it, really. Okay, so here is my front. I'm just making sure my front matches because, right, it's going to button up, and I don't want it to be... And I tend to forget this. I forget this with you guys all the time to make sure my fronts, like my waistband on my jeans or something, matches. I'm going to go at a 90-degree angle here, perpendicular to that. And I'm going to taper this. Blend it in there like that. Definitely want to make sure I get 90. This is not scientific, people. It's my pajamas. So I think one nice way to finish a hem when you have these kinds of facings is to sew a seam across and then continue the hemming. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to sew across straight as possible. Where's my little... Actually, I'm going to look at my little ruler here. You see all this little puckering? That's because it's so many layers. It's this, it's the interfacing, it's 2 pieces of fabric. It's starting to kind of draw up a little bit there. Not ideal. So I'm going to look at my seam and see, like, that looks a little, I thought it might be dipping a little bit. You see that? Let's get rid of that a little bit. I can see the grain line too. I know I cut this on grain. Okay, yeah, I know I'm hacking at that a little bit. These scissors are not that sharp enough. I'll smooth that out in the seam. I think I'm going to do kind of a big seam allowance, like a inch total, and that way I can roll it twice. Maybe I'll do a little bit less, like 3/4. I'm going to get rid of that corner there so it can turn. I'm also going to get rid of some of this right here. It's just unnecessary bulk. That. that. I probably could have done a fancier little edge right there. Okay, so that's my ending seam, and I'm gonna look at it, make sure it's gonna lay nice and flat and not dip. Like that, okay. All right, let's see here. My quick and dirty hem, because I'm excited about sleeves. Okay, my kingdom for some sharp scissors that are nice and small. Eek. Okay, let's see here. Make sure this is all nice and flat when you do that. I'm going to go right up to my facing. Get rid of all this excess here. Gone. Get rid of all that bulk. Now we're going to hem it. I'm just going to do a rolled hem. You know, one of the things I would love to get nerdy about and scientific about and learn for myself is what makes a rolled hem need ironing and what makes it not need ironing. You know what I mean? Like, we all have that, like, garment, like, even store-bought and homemade, where it always has to be ironed on the hems, right? And I've tried various things. Like, I have tried different techniques to make it so that it doesn't need to be ironed every time. Same with, like, handmade napkins. Do you guys have handmade napkins? Like, I have made them over the years, and so now I'm just gonna, like, enclose that in under the facing like that. So remember, I know I pushed my side seam towards the back, so I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to wonder, like, wait, what did I do up there? This is a bit of a curve to be able to get all that in there, but I'm gonna try. Get my garment up here so it stops pulling. I don't want like too many tucks. But you know what I mean? Like, I have like handmade napkins, and my best ones are the ones that were yarn dyed, like plaids. And then what I did was I pulled out some fibers and made like a natural fringe and just stitched around it. Those don't need ironing. But those have gotten pretty old and I need to replace them. I have some that someone gave to me as a gift, and it's just this like little heavier weight cotton that they bought at Joann Fabrics. Those things never need ironing. I don't know. Is it the fabric content? Is it how she sewed them? She, at the time, I knew her really well. She managed one of the departments in the company I worked in. Sharp as a tack, but was a budding sewist. Like, she didn't know how to sew very well, and this was one of her projects. And I remember how nervous she was to give them to a lot of us up in the design department. And they're like my favorite napkins. Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. I mean, Christy, my rolled hems aren't that great. They can be better. I definitely, like, this fabric is pretty forgiving. It's very, like, open weave and whooshy. I would spend a little more effort on an archer if I wasn't being, like, watched, probably. Like a nice button down. I find pinning just hinders me, though. Some things I need to pin, and this is one I just, I like to be able to adjust it as I go, you know, so. I tried to keep the exact same curve that they designed in this, hoping that they took into consideration the ease of hemming. I don't need to reinvent anything. Someone's already spent a ton of time sampling and figuring out. I respect their process, you know. I definitely want a nice transition here at the side seams, and I want to fill the hem with the hem, so I'm trying to fold it right where that raw edge is there. I feel like that contributes to less ironing, but it's not foolproof. So that's why I wonder, I know someone has figured this out, and I need to just piggyback on their knowledge and give them all the credit. Okay, so I'm just going to tuck that in there like that, and I'm going to go up to the facing, making sure this is all straight, best I can here. So once I've worn these, see I get a little torquing in there, but yeah, that'll work for me. Not bad, not bad. Let's get rid of my beginning tail, but look how clean that is. See what I mean? It's not, you know, it looks pretty good. I've used, let's see. I threw out an entire project on my curved hem. Oh, I'm sorry. I've totally been there. It's like, there's lots of ways to do it. You can, I was just watching this video of this woman manufacturing this skirt, and Brooke sent it to me. It was a clothing company, and she was talking about how expensive it was to make this skirt and why. And part of the issue was the curved hem of the skirt and how much time it took them to do it. Instantly, I was trying to think of a solution, and I was like, oh gosh, I don't need to do that. They have plenty of people doing that for them. And I know if I was just making one, you could do something like bias trim it. You know, if it's really curved, you're going to have to face it, meaning put a facing on it, or you can only turn it up a really small amount. Rolled hem feet are great for certain fabrics. I've used them before in like factory settings where they have a machine set up for that. I don't own, I have one probably. I've never put it on my machines. I don't know how it works. They may be worth the trouble though. So that looks pretty good though. Yeah, I could have handled the piping better. I know. But it's gonna go like that. Let's talk about sleeves. All right. But here's my jammy top. I just need to overlock those cuffs and check that the spacing of the trim looks nice. It looks pretty cozy though. I really love the floral trim. It's hard to get it all into the camera. Oh, I didn't really, did I? It looks really great. I know. I'm really excited about it. Yeah. Thanks. So once I've kind of figured that out, like this spacing here, like the other side was a little narrow, I'll serge that. And once I've worn this and washed this a couple times, I may decide to stitch down the spacing right to the bodice. It doesn't look like it's gonna flip out or get wrinkly, but it is a pet peeve. I don't want to have to iron my pajamas because I wouldn't. Very cute though. And they go with my cozy flannel bottoms here. What do you guys think? Not bad, huh? Serging always looks so messy though. I just don't like how, you know, unfinished it looks. That looks better, huh? Okay, cool. Let's talk about sleeves. All right. All right, have all these little pieces. Brought my sleeve. I might need this. My little sleeve board. I got some patterns. Okay, so I don't know if we're gonna sew all these, but I just thought I would let's talk about this. Okay, so this is your basic bodice with a sleeve. Oh, thank you. Let's tone down this lighting here. Yeah, right? That's better. Okay. Okay, so we talked about how the cap, you know, my little line got cut off. So this is a traditional bodice that you would make in patterns, like design school, but you would also, if you were working at a company, a brand new company, and they were going to go about it all the right way, and they were going to set everything up the traditional way, they would start with the basic bodice, the basic block. They would fit it. they would get it. It doesn't have any style lines. All it has is the manipulation points of the dart. It has the bust marked on it. And it's, you know, a neck that's like it sits right at the base of the neck where it joins the body. Same with the shoulder line is right there. So you know the basic dimensions of that person, and then you know going away from any of those points is where you start adding your style lines, right? So if you want a scoop neck, you're going to, you know, go away from the neck and go down low, you know, stuff like that. So most companies don't start this way anymore. Unfortunately, they get right into it. Maybe they copied a garment and then they've like been sewing a few and they get a home run, and then they hire someone like me to make that pattern more production worthy, and then they start adding more styles. And then they're basing all the sizing on this one garment that had style lines built onto it. And then you kind of start running into issues, but they get around them, and they maybe dial it back a little bit, and then they get their blocks they get some actual blocks. Or what they usually do is they say, hey, let's take style 1, 2, 6, 9 and make the sleeves shorter, the neckline lower, and the midriff higher. You know what I mean? And then they do that. They don't take it from the block. They take other styles that they know what they look like on the body. Making those changes most of the time works, sometimes it doesn't. And so sometimes you can't really make the adjustments to the pattern that you're wanting to make with the pattern that you're starting with. So this is a basic block. And yes, a basic block also has a sleeve dart, which I've taped shut here. That's why it's flared right there. And the back also has a shoulder dart. This is very traditional, you guys. And it has 2 bust darts. It has a side seam and a waist seam. And I'm going to just show you something really, really briefly about manipulating darts, just because I find that it kind of gets your head in the right space of like how to adjust things. So say you want to get rid of this side dart. You guys have had that garment where you're like, I love this, but I wish it didn't have 2 darts, or I wish the dart was in the waist and not the bust, or vice versa, right? Maybe it's because you have a striped fabric and you want all the stripes to stay nice and even with no interruption with a seam right there, or a plaid or something like that. So you can very easily manipulate these things by using your apex marking on the pattern. If it's not there, just draw a straight line. It's not going to be perfectly straight across, but go like that, and then, you know, go up from this other dart. You're roughly in the right area. And then you would cut up to that point, almost. Don't cut through. And if you wanted to get rid of this dart, you'd swing it this way, close the leg of the dart, and you just made this dart wider, okay? Same thing going the other direction. If you want to get rid of it, you're going to line it up at the seam there, like that, and then you just made this waist dart bigger. And then you would really want to work on the shaping of this little part that sticks down, and then we can go over that someday. But that's what you would do. So get you in the kind of the headspace. Same with this. You don't. No one needs a shoulder dart there. You're talking about very form-fitting, very tailored things where you're going to see a shoulder dart there, or they are using blocks and they just do the traditional way. Like I do see some things like that out there. There's nothing wrong with it. It's kind of a nod to traditional pattern drafting. So let's say this is just a smooth fitting cap, right? So this distance, here's the front notch, here's the front notch. This distance here always matches. This is the seam line. This is the seam allowance, all this extra. Be as wide as you want. This is only 1/4 of an inch here. This right here is your bicep line. This is your elbow. The terms you need to know are the cap, the armhole, also known as the armscye. Oops, I'm spelling this wrong. Armscye. Okay, armscye and armhole are the same exact thing. And really what we're going to be talking about is just the cap to the armhole or the armscye. So This is your bust line, your waistline. All these things should be marked on patterns, and they're not anymore. And it's so frustrating because you do need those kinds of things if you want to make any adjustments, especially fit adjustments. So say, let's just look at what happens. Oh, here, let me show you kimono. This is a kimono. So the armhole is gone and the cap is gone. That's what happens with the kimono. It's a pretty big difference. Let me use a black pen. So here's the armhole of the sleeve, of the body, right? That's gone, and then the cap is gone. And then you have this fisheye right there. This was all not there before, before it was a kimono. And now you've added that. That's all extra fabric, so you get all this extra right here, right? It's got to go somewhere. You've also removed the cap, so now if you've ever worn a garment that doesn't have an armhole right there, it wants to be like this, okay? If you were to get rid of that, you wouldn't be, like if you were to make the pattern so that it came down like this, you'd be like this. You wouldn't be able to lift your arms up. If you do, the entire garment comes with you, okay? It's very logical, but it's probably hard to wrap your head around unless you think of it in these terms. So that's my issues with kimono. On top of that, because you've lost this armhole shaping right here, now you have something that has no structure to grab onto this arm, and that's why it starts slipping to the back. The back is heavier, and there's just something about the slope of our body, probably because there's more leeway here, that it pulls to the back and chokes us. It's so annoying. All right, so let's look at what happens if we wanted to add gathers to a sleeve, okay? Say you want to add gathers to the sleeve, but nothing here, just some gathers like Laura Ashley dress, or is that too dated? You know what I mean, like a puff sleeve, right? So what you would do, this is a very non-scientific way I'm showing you, there's no seam allowance on this pattern, is you would slash and spread very symmetrically, not like I'm doing right now, but very symmetrically. You would add all these slash lines, and then you would spread it out. Spread it out, add to your cap, right? So now your cap just got bigger. That would be pretty drastic right there, okay? So say you would like a sleeve that, so let's look at a sleeve, what happens when we do certain things. So this is why I made all these little fabric ones, because I thought it'd be kind of fun to make some miniature bodices and show you what happens. So if you were to just trim off all that extra of that sleeve to the armhole, whether you do it here or here, you know, like you can kind of shave off the cap, and then it would make it so that there's less, you know, the line just got shorter now. You're making your arm less movable, right? Like this, okay? And it's the same if you did it here as well. This is wrapping around your arm. This is going around your bicep. So that's the way you have to think of it. It's a bifurcated pattern. Weird, right? And look, it looks like a pant leg. It kind of helps think about, I kind of would love to think of the relationship of these kinds of patterns to your pants to see if it would make it easier to think about. But the thing is, like, your arms aren't attached to each other, you know, like you don't have like two of these attached right here, and that's how your legs are. So it doesn't really equate. So so let's see, let's trim off one of these caps. Now when you find a pattern that doesn't have a very good cap, and then you sew it, By the way, this is a good exercise on making a muslin. When I make a muslin, I just sew it. I don't finish the edges. I don't even cut the facings out. I don't do any of that. Okay. So because this is a little tricky to sew because it's so small, I'm going to sew it the quick and dirty way. Let's see, this is the back and that is the front. Okay. This is the way it should go together. Yeah. This is the back, that's the front. Yeah, okay. All right, so my armhole didn't change, just my sleeve cap did. And I did it very instantaneously. I know, I just like chopped it off. So let's see if I can get it in there. But I just want to show you the difference. I didn't have much time to prepare all this. I'm not sure it'll fit in there. It might be now just too small. But let's see if I can. It's so small. I'm glad I did the half size, not the quarter size. The quarter size would have been really hard to sew. I have seen pattern courses where they only teach on quarter size mannequins. And while I think that that is instructional and helpful, I highly recommend if you ever take a pattern class to take one that's full size, not quarter. Okay, I got it in there. Now let's do my underarm really quick. I need a doll. Oh, this had a dart. That's right. I had a dart. I meant to get rid of the dart before I cut those out. I know that's probably not the dart, but I'm just going to sew this underarm seam. Sleeves are so long compared to the body. Let's see if we can see a difference. And also one of the regular ones up as well. Okay, so I can already see, I can already see the difference. So this is the front. So I can already see, like, this looks so flat right there. There's no room for gush. We like arm gush. Okay, so let's sew one. All right. Oh, this has a shoulder dart too. I knew I should have gotten rid of all those, but then I was like getting worried about the time. And I even, okay, yeah, no, that's fine, okay. Okay, then this is the regular sleeve, which I'm actually going to put in the little extra stitch so that I can ease it in there because it's so small. I'm going to need help getting it in there. I've spent hours on sleeves, like totally pickling myself into a corner sometimes, you know, like, okay, just overthinking it and overthinking it. And then going back right to square one, you know. Trying to keep it simple so that you can relate to what you're doing to the sleeve will make the most sense in the end and probably get you a better fitting sleeve. Okay. Let's hope I guessed this right. The amount of gathers. Totally throwing these together, I know. Not bad. Okay. Underarm. obviously pressing these would give them a better chance at success. I lost a little bit of my sleeve right there. That gives it the advantage to the bad one, so let's see. What we're looking for is flattering, range of motion, and comfort. Those are the three things I feel like are the most important with a garment. That it is comfortable to wear, you can move in it without fiddling with it all darn day, and that it's flattering on you. Okay, so. All right, so it has a little bit more of the gush. Okay, so we have a little bit more like this than we do on this one. We still have some range of motion, but what we're losing is the shallowness right here at the top. We don't like that shallowness. This isn't a very good example. Let me try and think of this in another way. So let's look at our pattern pieces here and our little guides here. So when we want to add more comfort, you need it through this cap here. Through here. You need this, right? You need that fullness. Anytime it gets shallower, you're going to lose your range of motion. And you can make it a little closer fitting by scooping out a little bit more on the front, things like that. You still would like that nice smooth cap. All right, so on a t-shirt, what they do is they make a shirt block. And what they do is they take this pattern piece. This is the back. Look at the back. Make the shoulder. They extend this armhole like this. They actually flatten the armhole right here. So they remove some of this scoop right there. And then they take the sleeve and the same thing. They actually will go, they'll make it wider and flatter like this. So that's your new sleeve cap. So you lose all this cap here. You got a little bit back right here. So once you've taken it off of the sleeve, you have to add it back to the armhole. But you know, it doesn't look as dressy, does it? It's not as tailored. It's more casual. So if you were to make this pattern a knit pattern, you can make the entire thing a little bit smaller. And you don't need the ease across the cap. So they will scooch off some of the top, scooch in a little bit of the back and the front for the knit, because the knit's very forgiving and it's stretchy, and you don't want lots of extra fabric on a knit shirt. You want it to be closer fitting usually. And it's why, like, if you were to take a woven garment and cut it in knit and try and sew that together, it's going to be too big at first. You're going to have to probably trim it or alter it or, you know, somehow size it down a little bit, which is kind of nice. You're like, hey, this is a little big, you know, but you don't want to waste all that fabric and time sewing it. So just try not to cut your woven garments into knits, you know. But that's how they would adjust the sleeve cap for that. So now, let's see here. So for raglans, I'm running out of sleeves. For raglans, what they do is they take the cap, extend it all the way up here to the neckline, and they cut this part off. So they're going to trim this part off of the bodice, tape it to the cap here, and then they do all this blending and everything to make it all work. it would look roughly like this. I do like raglans. They just don't always fit very well. So this is your new front pattern piece. And then your back would have a piece of the back, the sleeve would have a piece of the back and a piece of the front. Like that. So they would cut these two pieces off and tape them to the sleeve. And now your sleeve goes all the way to the neckline. Super easy to sew though. So that is a really nice attractive benefit to raglans, that you're going to get a better fitting garment than you would a kimono. And it's easier to sew than a set-in sleeve. They're just very sporty looking. You do see them in nice tailored things, but it is kind of rare, and it's a little bit more of a style thing and an edgy thing to do. So you're going to see raglans, you know, more along the lines of something casual and sporty, and they're really great. And color blocking is really fun with them as well. So that's kind of how the raglan goes together. And there is no ease, usually, maybe very minor amount in there. It's not going to be much. Those seams now are completely on the bias, both of them. The front, the back, and the sleeve are all now seams that have bias in them, so you don't really want to add anything there. You can probably take a little out, but you don't. See, this is, okay, I'll tell you the problem with a raglan. I'm trying to stay focused, you guys, sorry. Let's see. The problem with the raglan is that you lose this part right here. You lose the mobility of this, because the raglan, if you were to make this as long as it needed to be able to do all of this, you would have to add too much armhole, and then you'd have all this bulk down here. The garment would get too big, because you've lost the shaping element of the cap of the sleeve, right? So the person is shaped, you know, like this. And when you do a raglan, it looks roughly like this. This is the sleeve. This is the front. This is the back. Right here is your shoulder. And you lose the ability to sculpt around it using all the seams you had before. You lose some of the cap. That's why raglans sometimes don't fit as well, but they're typically garments sewn in knits, so you just don't notice it as much. So it gives you the freedom of motion. All right, who's with me? How boring is this? Tell me your questions about sleeves, why you would do things. You know, like if you wanted a cap sleeve is more along the lines of this. Little tiny sleeve, and then the sleeve goes down lower. If you want a short sleeve, a longer short sleeve, elbow length sleeve, and then the wrist, and then you can add to the circumference of the wrist for gathers. You can add to the cap for gathers, and all of the rest is just style. So are you guys sticking with me? I can't tell. I think you guys are all like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go watch something else right now. So if you're going to pick out patterns, I'm going to tell you always pick the one with the set-in sleeve. You're going to get the best fit. You're going to have a nicer looking garment on you. You're probably going to gravitate to wearing it more often. Just don't skip easing in all the extra sleeve, because that's what makes it fit so well. And if you find a pattern with no easing at all, you're just humoring me, Brooke. If you find a set-in sleeve on a woven garment with no ease at all, be careful of that. Like, I would definitely look at how it fits other people. You know, always check the hashtag of the garment. Find what the hashtag is, because sometimes it can be confusing, or you might think of it, you know, something else. Like some companies like to put their name of their company in front of the pattern, like a Grain Line Studio does that, hashtag Grain Line Archer. Whereas you might be looking at like Archer button up instead. So make sure you look at the accurate hashtag and look at the people. Like, use hashtags like Ravelry. You know, like if you're a knitter, you know what I'm talking about. The beauty about Ravelry, which is a website for knitters, is that they have a way to look at people who have made that exact same sweater, who have been kind enough to post pictures of themselves wearing it. So it's the first thing I do when I look at a pattern. I look at I look at the person that looks the most similar to me in my body shape, and then I try and find someone who used a yarn that's similar, and then I can see, like, okay, she's not as busty as me. It looks really amazing on her. I'm liking all of the sweaters on the girls that are flatter chested than me, so maybe this sweater is not going to look that great. And then if I find that girl that is busty like me, and I see that sweater on her, and I'm like, I don't know about that. That's a little too low of a neckline. It's riding up in the front. It's too taut across the bosom. You know, there's things like that that I look at. I'm very serious about how it affects my bust. So that's what I would look for, is look at those hashtags. Be really honest with yourself and how it's fitting that model. And remember, they're trying to show you the most flattering picture, because that's what I do, right? I mean, I try to be really honest in my photos, but there's some times where I'm like, well, I'm not going to post that, you know? So be honest with yourself, be honest with those hashtags, and always look at them. Even if you've already bought the pattern, you're like, crap, I really need to buy that. I need to really make this now. I've already spent this money on this pattern. Find the person that looks like you and see what they did to make it look the best on them. And always go for that set and sleeve, because I know you can sew it. So I'm glad, Brooke. Yeah, thank you. I need to work on my pattern lingo and making it interesting, because I know it's a little bit nerdy for some of you. But, and also I don't really have really good props because I put these together in the half hour. So, but yeah, we should do definitely some more pattern drafting things and how to change patterns, because that is really where it's at, you know? So we're really hard on ourselves with how we sew things together. And it's funny because we're not hard on a person in another country sewing for us in a factory. We're just like, oh yeah, of course they can do that. You know, so can you. But, you know, they got to sew 50,000 of them and you've only gotten to sew one. So, you know, just be nice to yourself and do the research and go gently, you know. And there's definitely things I've made even on stream where I'm like, not too thrilled with how this fits me. It fits the way it's supposed to fit. I just don't prefer that kind of fit, you know. And I will definitely revisit that person's patterns again. I just will be better at making the choice of which one would work for me better. You know what I mean? So anyway. All right, you guys. You don't have any questions, so I'm going to end because I don't really know what else. I mean, I could keep sewing little sleeve things, but just remember to put in your stay stitch and ease it through the cap. And I know maybe all of you rushed out and are cutting out that garment with the set-in sleeve, and you're trying my technique because it works. It works, it works, it works. And bless the person who taught me how to do it that way 20 years ago, because it really changed my sewing and upped my game. And I'm a big fan of set-in sleeves. Resources for measuring, like, what do you mean, like measuring yourself, or kinds of rulers to buy? What do you mean, Brooke? It's like a 5-second delay, so I have to stand here waiting. Measuring yourself is not easy, and then almost everybody is like, absolutely don't measure yourself. Yeah, right? You know, I saw someone doing a post on doing that, and they made themselves like a bodysuit with the like dots all over it to do it. I haven't checked out that post to see how they're doing it. Let's see. Okay, what I would do when I'm kind of doubting some of the measurements I've taken, I look at a garment in my closet that I like the fit of, okay, whether I've made it or not. Usually I look at all kinds of things. I try and look at garments that are similar to what I'm about to sew and have similar like seam lines, like in general. Like if it's a set-in sleeve with a, you know, neck, like a fixed neck, you know, not something like with a crazy neck or something like a turtleneck or a draped neck or something like that, I try and compare apples to apples. I look at those I also try and compare the same fabrics. Like, don't pick a knit shirt and compare it to a woven shirt. That won't work. So if you're making, you know, like a button-down shirt, say, and you're wondering, like, well, what size should I make? Like, if I measure my favorite button-down shirt or my least favorite button-down shirt, it measures 45 in circumference, right? Yeah, right, Kirby, I know. Oh, it's an app. Oh, okay. Well, someone's doing a blog post on it, just like one of the pattern companies. So measure, okay, say the bust measures 45 in circumference when it's buttoned up, right? You want the shirt to be buttoned up. And you think that that's a little snug. So look at the pattern and say, all right, here's the finished measurements of this pattern. Finished as if someone sewed it together. And this one measures 47. I think that one would fit me better. But across the shoulders, like, I feel like the across the shoulder measurement is left off of pattern envelopes far too often. It's really important. It's not left off of knitting patterns, thankfully. It's a really important measurement across the back shoulders. Look at that and look at your bust. And, you know, if you're really getting nitty gritty, you can look at your armhole depth, but I wouldn't go there quite yet. I would just look at your bust and across your shoulders when you're trying to get that good fit. Yeah, right, Kirby? Yeah, there's a bodysuit with dots. It's black and white, right? I saw it. And then, so if you can't have someone help you measure, or you don't want to have someone help you measure, look at garments that you like or don't like and try and go after the measurements you see in front of you, or steer clear of the measurements you see in front of you. Always look at finished measurements on a pattern. They're really helpful. And if there aren't enough, like there certainly aren't enough finished measurements written down on the Carolyn pajamas. They are pajamas, but still, I don't really want to, like, hand making pajamas, like spending all that time for pajamas, that's a commitment. I mean, like, I sit here and joke with you guys about, hey, they're just pajamas, don't worry about this detail, but at the same time, they're pajamas, so they better be fitting me well, because I just spent a lot of time making pajamas. I'm not trying to diss pajamas. I'm just saying that no one else is going to see this. I'm going to see this. I better be comfortable in it. I don't want them sitting in my drawer. You know, I'll just donate them, because I would much rather someone else be wearing them if they fit them better than me, you know, filling my drawers with things that I don't really need to have, you know. So there needs to be more finished measurements, so look for those. And if they're not there, measure the pattern. So draw the seam allowance on the pattern and measure on the seam line. Hopefully they'll have things like the bust line or the hip line, or those spots. Like, what I found really interesting on the Carolyn pajamas on the pants is the lengthen and shorten line on the back pant and the front pant are different spots from each other. So they don't need to be in the same spot, but the thing was, I was using that to match my plaids, and they were wrong. And so one leg of my pants does not match, because I was cutting them out individually to match the plaids. And so I realized it on my second one. Your high bust and your full bust, and we like to make garments that fit at both those points. So why are you focusing on your high bust? You mean like up here above your full bust? I would look at your full bust and where it is in relation to your side seam and focus on that. And don't let that stress you out, because I don't want to prevent you from making something, because the thing is, you have to fail in order to learn. Yeah, Seabrook, I understand that. Okay, so this is something that, don't tell anyone I did this, you guys. I used to do this, so I've gotten some really important contracts in the past, pattern contracts that I definitely wanted to know going in what was out there in the world. I wasn't copying it. I just needed to know what existed and what worked and what didn't work, right? And so I have gone into places like Target or other stores, different stores, because Target is considered a budget brand, so the sizing isn't going to be as on point. It's not going to be as close fitting. It's usually going to be a little bit bigger. And I have bought every single size in the exact same garment and then measured them. Yeah, I know. So, but the thing is, you can, like for you, Brooke, I would focus on the bust measurement and then make the adjustments to the shoulders, because you can always taper an armhole in, right? So you can always do this. Like if you need to pick a size, like say you need to pick a larger size for your bust size, and you don't want this to get all droopy, you can trim this, okay? You can trim that off. That doesn't affect the measurement of the armhole too significantly, but then you can draw your seam line on here and then measure that, measure your sleeve, and then measure the measure what it was before, and then measure what you did to it before you cut, or trace it and then measure it before you cut, and see what the difference is. If you're talking 1/8 of an inch, don't worry about it. If it's a 1/2 inch, I like that. I liked the smolder. You're smoldering anyway. You can add to the sleeve or take away from the sleeve. What I really like is adjusting it here. When you're adjusting a sleeve to a armhole for a beginner, I really like that. But you can, like if you have to adjust a sleeve, you guys, say you need to make this line longer, try and do it like this. Try and do it like that. Gosh, sorry, there's like all these lumps. Okay. This now just got longer, okay? If you need to shorten it, go like this, okay? Do 0 here to however much. And remember, you only need to do half the amount, okay? Worst case scenario, say you have quite a bit you need to get rid of, you can slip this down the middle like we did on that one, right? And you can overlap it and take out a little bit, divide it into 3, like if you really have to take out a lot. And then make sure you're not flattening out your cap. I'm throwing so much information at you guys, because you definitely need this nice full cap. You don't want to flatten this out. Flattening it out meaning like this. You don't want to lose this nice little peak, you know. I was saying something earlier. So yeah, so I used to like go and like I did this with kids' clothes, you guys. I would buy every size in kids' clothes. And the reason I did this was because I was trying to pinpoint for a customer why there's a 6 and a 6X in girls and a 7. So there is this weird thing in kids' clothes where the 6X is the largest girl's size and the 7 is the boys. I don't know why they just couldn't call the girls a 7, you know? No idea why. It's the same with a size 4 and a size 4T. You know what the difference is? A diaper. That's the difference. You know how long it took me to figure that out? Nobody knew the answer to this question. Nobody knew why there was a 2, 3, 4, and then there was the 2T, 3T, 4T. What was the T for? A diaper. Okay, that's the only difference. And I figured that out. So you can do that. If you don't have a lot of clothes, Brooke, to measure, you can go buy things and return them and measure them. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I think that it would be, yeah, like I really feel like you could cut out the pieces, sew the side seam, maybe sew the underarm seam of the sleeve, and then pin it to yourself. Sew the shoulder, make all these seams available to be taken out again, and then pin it together, like where, because you might find that, like say you have your front and your back. I'm not going to do the dart. Okay, so here we have our front and our back. This is our front, this is our back. So then you, say you picked out one, like, so some people have really broad shoulders, some people have bigger busts, you know, like there's lots of reasons to cut different. Change the sleeve cap. Okay, so I'm going to, I'll just do it right sides together. Yeah. Yeah. So say you put this bodice Yeah, you could just measure in the try-on room. You could do that too. I couldn't do that when I literally was getting like 17 pairs of jeans and measuring them. I wasn't going to do that in the try-on room. And they didn't bat an eye when I bought those. They didn't bat an eye when I returned them. I was like, oh, I have to return these. I saved a few. Like I saved like one in each size range, and I used them because I had to prove a point to my customer. So I did that for like 4 different brands. It was a heck of a lot of measuring, and let me tell you, you can buy 2 6s and they will measure different from each other, so you have to like worry about that too. Okay, so you're gonna put your bodice together. You're gonna make your muslin, right? So you've sewn your front and your back together, and then you try it on and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to get rid of all of that, all of this, right? Not the seam allowance, but all of that, right? So then put it on your little body. And I would start cutting into it like this a little bit, getting rid of it, and tucking it under, saying like, yeah, okay, that fits a little bit better, right? So now you just lost some of that right there on the bodice. It might mean you need to add a little bit here, but most likely not. So then I want you to, take this off, cut your armhole a little bit, because you're going to be brave and you're going to be like, yeah, I'm committing to this, okay? Because it's your muslin. It's just your muslin. Who cares? You can make another one. The thing is, you will never know unless you try. And you have to fail in order to know what doesn't work to find out what does work, right? So you have to make mistakes. It's just as how it is. So this is the back. This is the front, okay? I have my new armhole now. I'm like, okay, is my sleeve going to fit? So you could baste it together and see. You could sew it on there and then try it on and see if it's still working. If it's too much or too little to ease in there, you're going to know, okay, I'm going to take out my side seam here, let it out a little bit because I need a little bit more. If it's a muslin, you can just add a little triangle of fabric in there, and sew it in there to your seam. Get it bigger, just to see if that's what it's going to take. You're going to have to drape it. And I would do this on a really simple garment. And then from there, you're going to have kind of the start of a block. Okay? So I hope that makes sense. I know it seems really daunting to do that. But all I want you to do is sew 3 seams. Well, maybe 5, because I want you to do the front and the back on the left and the right. So I want you to do both your shoulders. I want you to do both your side seams. I want you to put it on. I want you to sew 1 sleeve, just the underarm, and that's it. 5 seams. That's all I want you to do. I don't want you to serge it. I don't want you to French seam it. I don't want you to cut facings out. I just want you to cut it out of cheap fabric and then try it on and just see. You won't know anything until you do that part, and you don't have a way to go forward until you know that. And then once you do, you might be like, okay, I know what I'm working with now. I know, I feel like I'm a pep talk for sewers. I just want you to know, you can't know anything until you have some information to start with, right? So you can't figure anything out. So that's what I would start with. That's what I would do on my own. Like my basic bodice is sitting right here that I need to fit. And it looks just like these pieces here without the shoulder dart on the back and without the sleeve dart on the elbow. But mine are really, really basic. It's got the basic dart at the waist, on the front and the back. I don't think it has a side bust dart, but yeah, that's what I use for my bodice. Yeah, definitely, Brooke. That's awesome. Get some muslin there tomorrow. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, muslin's great. It's cheap, and you won't feel bad about drawing with a Sharpie right on your body, And so before you try on your little muslin jacket, iron it under, and so then when you get it on, you can pin it together. Don't just throw it on. Do it all right. You're already starting this mile, so go the whole mile, okay? Get it on you and be really honest about it, and don't be too hard on yourself. Be like, okay, it's sitting at my waist. It's not going to look good, Brooke. It's not going to look good. It's going to look awful because it's muslin and it's not attached to anything else and it's not finished, okay? So if you have something that just stops at the waist, it's going to look really weird. It's going to look really high-waisted. because our waists are a lot higher than what we wear our clothes at. So just don't forget those things. Like if you're starting with something simple like a tunic number 1 or something like that, or dress number 1 like by Sonia Phillip, I think that's an excellent place to start. Something really simple like that, you know? You're just going to pull it over your head and you're going to try it on and you're going to see. And then you're going to send me a picture and I'm going to help you. Okay? All right, you guys. I hope someone else does too. I hope you guys start working on getting that perfect fitting thing, you know? It just makes it worth it. We're not doing this for any other reason except that we want clothes we made that fit really well and we can say, yeah, I made this, you know? All right, any more questions, you guys? I hope that helped a little bit. I know it was a little bit all over the place. It wasn't very well thought out because I was like, yes, we're going to nerd out on sleeves. Oh gosh, I don't have any information. So, all right, you guys. Well, happy holiday sewing if that's what you're doing, or cookie baking, or present shopping, or drinking hot cocoa, or just sitting there doing none of that. And, you know, more power to you. That's for sure. I'm going to a plant nursery tomorrow with my mom. It'll be fun. And I'm going to try and make gingerbread this weekend because I really like it. Try and get my tree up finally. Okay, good. I'm glad, Carol. I hope, yeah, let me know how it goes, you know? I know we need like a private chat group where we can share pictures of our muslins, you know? Someday I found a graphic artist I think is going to work with me on making everything look more polished on the stream, getting maybe some decorations up on my stream. She's going to work on my YouTube banner, which is horrid. And then maybe I'll start slowly building a really basic website where we can kind of amass some of these resources and become a home for all of us that are trying to get a good fit and kind of laugh about what we're doing and kind of get going. So, and I'm going to try and get more how-to videos. I keep saying that, I know. But also, I would like a place for all the free downloads to start living so that they're available for anyone who wants them. So. Okay, guys, have fun. Thanks for helping me sew my pajamas. I kind of shortchanged them at the end there because I was so excited to talk about sleeves with you guys. But I do love how they ended up. Maybe I'll get a picture of myself wearing them. We'll see. It's all dark now because I've got changed the lighting on there. So, all right, where's my mouse? Okay, here it is. All right, guys, I'm Sarah. Thanks for coming by. What do you guys want to do next week? Let's see. I almost was going to say I'll probably only stream once next week. I know, that's what I was thinking, Brooke. I know, I just need to find someone who will help me manage that because you guys don't know this, but I'm awful at Facebook. I've almost deleted my whole profile. I have a business profile on there, but I'm not on there ever, so I need help with that. I'm only on Instagram, and that's about it. I don't know what I'm going to sew next week. I have no clue. Let me think about it. If you have any ideas, you guys, something simple, please. Oh, hi, Cheyenne. Nice to see you again. You're welcome. Let's see. Well, we'll see. I'll try start looking for my things. I'm making some holiday things in here. I can't show those yet. Yay, knit PJs for Trevor. Are they gonna have little frogs on them? You need to find a oh my gosh. Wait, a knit PJ meaning, wait a minute. Are you going to knit pajamas or are you going to sew knit fabric pajamas? I know you because I know you knit. So I need to place an order for my little pug, Kirby. You make pug worthy knits now, right? So I need a little sweater for him. All right, let me think. I do want to make a port side duffel. Are you guys down for that? Not the DOP kit that I made, but a duffel. I have to make 2 of those, and I'm making, my sister better not be watching. I don't know if my sister knows I live stream yet, so if she's watching right now, go away, turn it off, Laura, go away. I'm going to make miniature versions of my backpack. You know that I made the making backpack? I'm going to make a version that's like 85% smaller, so I can sew those on stream as well. I've already got the fabrics and everything. So those are my things that I need to make. So if you guys want to do, yes, Loki wants a sweater. If you guys want to do some of my holiday sewing, you could do that. That would be really helpful for me. So I'll look at those and see. So, all right, you guys, nice chatting with you. I love it when you guys chat with me. So Thanks for coming. Thanks for all the really positive comments I'm getting. I'm really glad so many of you like this. I really do hope it takes off as well. So it's really fun to do it. So take care, and I will see you either Thursday or Saturday. I'm still deciding. So it's getting busy. Bye, guys.